The UK government seems obsessed with dehumanizing asylum seekers, and so today I'm going to give you some books that actually humanize them and treat them like real people. You can get these from the description down below, but wherever you get them from, I recommend you do get them. I recommend you try and do something to help asylum seekers and refugees where you live in your area, and maybe just help spread the message that asylum seekers are humans and deserve to be treated as such. Let's get started right away with Conversations from Calais. I made a short on this, but I'm going to go into much more detail about the book here. Conversations from Calais is a kind of art collective / activist group made up of volunteers, artists, journalists, writers, the lot, who basically, in conjunction with Freedom from Torture, which is another charity here in the UK, and the charities that operate in Calais with asylum seekers, they went over there, and this book is a combination of essays and art and interviews, where Conversations from Calais, they basically have these very I can't even think of a word, like austere maybe, posters, which are basically a writing of the conversations and the memories of asylum seekers or volunteers from Calais, or conversations between the two, recollections of those conversations from the asylum seekers or the people who are volunteering to help them out, and alongside that, essays from, like I said, journalists and activists and asylum seekers themselves and volunteers, talking about the asylum system, talking about how people suffer in it, talking about how it can be reformed, alongside these very stark posters that Conversations from Calais have created, and they have pasted around, not just here in the UK, but also in places like France. It is a heart-wrenching read. It is not just the essays, but just reading the posters themselves, because the posters are very text-heavy. It is heartbreaking, and seeing the Labour Party of all parties here in the UK going out of their way to dehumanise asylum seekers and pass policies, or at least try and implement policies, that are very reminiscent of the Nazi Party. Not just the idea of stealing the assets of asylum seekers, the very few things they come to this country with, and selling them off, but also forcing asylum seekers to carry a very special individual ID, forcing asylum seekers to have to be rechecked constantly, giving them this constant fear of, can I build a life here? Is it worth me building a life here? Basically making it so they don't want to integrate in society, which seems to be the very thing that this is trying to encourage, but it clearly doesn't. You can tell I'm very passionate about this. I go into a lot more detail about this on my politics channel over here, so if you want, I've already made a few videos about this. I'm probably going to make even more. Maybe the day this video comes out, I would have made another one to go out on that channel. So if you want more details about this, go over there. I think it could be relevant in conjunction with this video. I'll also link, I'll link the channel down below and whatever else I can do. But Conversations from Calais is a very beautiful book. I got it secondhand from Bookmarks, my favourite bookstore. I don't know 100% if you can buy it firsthand. If you do, obviously the links will be in the description down below. Also, every copy sold, a percentage does go to, in this case I believe it's going to Free From Torture, which is a UK-based charity. But if you can get it, encourage your library to get it so more people can read it and learn about the plight of asylum seekers. The next book I want to talk about is Sea Prayer. I think I've made a video on this book years ago, and it's actually one that did very well. But Sea Prayer is a fiction book. I'd maybe classify it as teen or kids. It is very beautifully illustrated. It is heart-wrenching. It is about a father and son basically trying to seek asylum and the dangers that they face in trying to seek asylum, but also the denigration they face, them trying to make a very dangerous journey. This father being like, I just want to help my son. I just want my child to not suffer anymore. And to do that, they have to go through danger and being, looked down upon. I'm sorry, I'm just getting angry filming this. The way even our supposed left-wing party here in the UK is just like treating asylum seekers like they are less than human. Like for some reason they owe us because we are signatories of human rights. It is apparently their fault that we helped destroy their country. It is somehow their fault that our policies surrounding asylum seekers are created in such a way to make it easy to scapegoat and punish them for merely existing. And this book goes into detail the trials, the fear these asylum seekers face, the devastation, the psychological impact, and it's also reflected in the illustrations within this book. It is, I think, again, not for young kids, maybe, I don't know, 10 if they're mature upwards, a way to kind of show them the plight of asylum seekers, show them, the struggle that asylum seekers go through. Could be a good way of doing that. Or even an adult, I read it and I was moved to tears when I was reading it. I believe I borrowed it from my library when I lived in London, so unfortunately I don't have a copy of it myself, but it is a genuinely beautiful and heart-wrenching, and just I think all these books are heart-wrenching, just truly another book I highly recommend. And also another one where I believe a purchase of the book does result in a donation being made to charity. I'm not 100% sure on that still. I don't know how long publishers or authors do this for, but on the cover of the book I remember it saying that some money does go to charity. But again, I would double check that before purchasing if I was you. And the final book is actually a more US-centric book, but it still applies elsewhere. It is Immigration Detention, Inc. It is all about how immigration detention, specifically in the United States, in the case of this book, is a massive money field. It is a way that these corporations, prison corporations in particular, are making a lot of money off of the suffering of asylum seekers, off the suffering of immigrants, off of the suffering of people trying to get a better life, because just like here in the UK, the United States is complicit in destroying many of the places that many of these asylum seekers are coming. In the United States particularly, it is Latin and South America. Well, Latin America, that is Central and South America. And the United States is complicit in the destruction of these people's homes, oftentimes through regime change, oftentimes through backing far-right groups and or militias to enhance corporate interests in the United States. That's a slightly different conversation anyway, but this is more so about the immigration service or corporation culture in the United States, and how these prison corporations benefit off of it. And I'm not sure how recent the book goes up to. I have an older edition, but right now in the United States, private prison corporations, their stock valuations jumped when Donald Trump was elected because of his stance on rounding up illegal immigrants, which is just random brown people off the streets, which kind of seems to be the thing that's happening. You have arms and what is it, like whatever the rubbish the ICE agents wear, those corporations, their stocks are jumping and getting more profit because the government is giving out contracts to them as well. So it is all just a cycle of people making money, and those same people will lobby particularly Republican politicians, but do not be dissuaded, do not be shocked at the fact that Democratic politicians are also getting lobbied by these companies to continue to pass harsh and draconian immigration laws. And even here in the UK, this book does go into the abhorrent conditions that asylum seekers are kept in, or immigrants are kept in. In the UK, we want to do the same thing. Not we as a me, but our government wants to do the same thing. There was a talk, I think about, a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, there was discussions of the government moving asylum seekers into a barracks that the previous government, the Tory government, had already decided was not feasible for humans to stay in. But now Labour, and that's the Conservatives, and even then they had a pretty harsh line on immigration. Now the Labour Party is looking at doing the same thing with people. Last government, the last government, they tried to put asylum seekers on these like prison barges, and then they had to undo that because it was found to be not habitable for human life. The barracks I'm talking about is a barracks that isn't in use because it is not suitable for people to be staying in them. So they want to mistreat the asylum seekers and then say, oh, the asylum seekers are treated too good, and then they're like, let's just take away their human rights entirely. It is disgusting and frustrating and just abhorrent and despicable. So, like I said earlier on in the video, I do have a channel where I just talk about politics, and I hopefully have made a video where I go into more detail about this. I was basically documenting as these things are coming out from the UK government. Do not be surprised if supposedly centrist or left-wing politics and politicians continue to push this line, as they have pushed the Overton window to the right. I won't get into Tommy Robinson here. But in the UK, do not be confused to see the Labour Party go more and more draconian, and they will be punished for this. I believe it was, I don't know if it was Denmark or Sweden, I'll put it here, one of their formerly centre-left parties, like the Labour Party, decided to go to the right, and they lost a seat for the first time, I think, in history, or whatever, since that seat was there. Labour will be punished for this. I hope no one who supports these policies can live a life of peace. Well, I probably get into it more so on my politics channel anyway. So you can get the books from down below. If they're not available, I do recommend going to your library, seeing if your library can get them in. Maybe that is also a great way of getting more people to, read these kind of books, whether inadvertently or you go off and you tell your friends or your family, hey, go to the library and get this. So you're helping the library and you're helping, educate people. Also, reading these books is not going to have the same impact as you going out and maybe being able to do something. If there is something local to you that helps asylum seekers or refugees, go and do it. I recently decided to get involved with my local town's kind of chapter, or their charity that helps refugees. Obviously, there are many ways to help as well. If you are someone who's creative, do something creative to help that. Obviously if you don't have the means to go out and get involved with volunteering and stuff, there are other things you can do. You can do things through social media. You can, if you are a writer, if you are an artist, if you are, someone with some sort of platform, no matter how small or big, you can make a difference. There is many different things we can do to help change things. Yeah. Thank you guys for watching. And yeah, try and do something to help. No matter what, even if you think it's small, I promise you 1,000 small things helps a lot.